Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Warm welcome to the inaugural lecture of Prof. Cletos. Can I please ask you to rise as we welcome the procession inside the venue? Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. Prof. Pieter. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. An inaugural lecture is not just about showcasing research. It's a celebration. It is sharing a story. Prof. Mapiye is here today to introduce himself in a more personal way, to inspire others, because everybody who's an academic staff someday wants to stand here and do an inaugural lecture, giving people a better understanding about himself and behind the title. It's also a way to connecting others within the university and beyond. I'm Pieter Gous. I'm standing in for the Dean, who's sending his apology. And I want to welcome all of you, especially Professor Mapiye. I can't see him now. Where is he sitting? Oh, yes, he's sitting right in front. I'm looking, I thought he's going to be with his family, but there will be enough time for that. Specifically to him and his family and his children. It's such a joyous occasion. And I can still remember my two daughters when I did my inaugural lecture. They were more interested in the food, but that's fine. I also want to basically welcome Professor Sibusiso Moyo, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Leslie van Rooy, who's here, Professor Chamonyo, all the way from Venda. Welcome to this inaugural lecture as well. And specifically to all of you that's sitting here today. Everybody is waiting for Professor Mapiye to do this very important lecture. Maybe one of the most important ones in your life. And I know at the end of this lecture, we're going to ask you a lot of questions. So be prepared for that. Enjoy this event, and I'm going to hand over to Professor Philip Strydom, who's going to do the introduction.
Thank you, Professor Gous. Colleagues, friends, Prof. Mapiye's family, his students, honored guests, it's a real pleasure for me to introduce Prof. Cletos Mapiye on the occasion of his inaugural lecture. Now, if you look, and I'm sure some of you have looked at his CV, you will agree with me that it is basically impossible in this 5 minutes that they gave me to give you an overview of that, so I will make it kind of short and just highlight a few important points, and if I mess up a little bit, I think he's got the 45 minutes to correct me. But I'll do my best to show you, to give you some sense of the person behind all these achievements. Now, Cletos, and it is very important that he started, not his career, but his life, on a farm in Zimbabwe, and I think this laid a foundation of where he went in his career, and basically the knowledge, it's not only the knowledge that he gained by growing up on a farm like that, but I think it also shaped his perspective and the way that he went forward in his research career. So he decided, so for him it wasn't a difficult thing in matric to decide in which direction he would go. I mean, that was basically laid out, as I've just said. And he started this academic training of him in Zimbabwe, and he did his honors and his master's degree in the University of Zimbabwe. And then in 2007, he decided to do some traveling and spread his wings, and he came to South Africa to do his PhD at the University of Fort Hare, and that's where I met him, because I had the honor to be his co-supervisor, together with the late Professor Forster Muchenje. And here I realized that this is a special kind of person. He's a focus-driven, and I think I want to use the words quietly determined guy. But when you get him in a scientific debate, then that all changes, because he knows and he can stand his ground. And then he starts to challenge you. So after his PhD, he spread his wings even further, and he went to Rwanda. And from there on, he went to Canada, and he worked there. And I think it was some kind of a scholarship at Lacombe Research Institute or Center. And he gained a lot of knowledge on especially fatty acid analysis, which we, in our department, uses very lucratively and in our postgraduate studies, because he's really a specialist on that grounds as well. And then after his PhD, after he came back from Canada, he arrived or he got a position at the University of Stellenbosch, where I met him again later on when I was also appointed in 2020 basically. And since then, his trajectory has been nothing short of really remarkable. He's built a highly productive international recognized research program, and especially focusing on Climatesmart and phytogenic feed strategies. So you can see from his background and how he grew up that he took this balanced approach of producing a product, but also looking at quality, and then also looking at what does this do to our environment. So having a balanced approach. I think his output speaks for itself. Over 170 peer-reviewed publications, numerous chapters, invited keynote presentation, conference contributions, etc. But I think the most remarkable thing, and you would have seen this when we took photos, is his investment in younger people, in his postgraduate students. And there, he's really got a large number in this short time since he arrived at the university. Large number of MSc and PhD students, and is still busy with that. So, and many of them that graduated, they took off and they're contributing in the same field internationally, but especially also up in Africa, which I really think is rewarding. Cletos is a highly respected scholar in the broader academic community, and he's serving on various editorial boards and contributing to professional societies. Obviously, he's got NRF rating, various rewards, SASA Silver Reward, Established Research Award, and so on. But I think beyond all these metrics and accolades, there's something that stands out for me, and that is his resilience, his humility, his humbleness in the way that he approached his work and other people. And I think that continues to shape the kind of research that he does and the way that he mentors others, and he's plowing back into the young people. So it is both my privilege and my pleasure to introduce Professor Mapiye, and please join me in welcoming to the podium for his presentation.
Good evening, colleagues. Our DVC, Prof. Moyo, good evening. Our Dean of Students, Prof. House, and all of us who are here. And I also understand we have colleagues online. Very good evening. It's my pleasure to be here, and I want to take you through some of the work that I've been doing that gets me to this podium today. So as you can see from the diagram, I'm sure you understand by the end of this lecture that what animal is can actually influence what goes into our plate, and it can influence our nutrition. So I will take you through my journey, and then after that I will go through what I've been doing, and maybe starting with why I'm doing that, how I'm doing it, and what exactly I've been doing. I was actually born and nurtured by agriculture, born on a small-scale farm in Zimbabwe where we farmed with livestock and crops. So I think these days it's becoming very rare to grow your own food, prepare it, and consume it. It's becoming very rare. So we had that privilege growing up. I remember from the age of 4, we didn't have the privilege to go to preschool. We were herding cattle, taking the cattle to pastures to and from. You would know what they eat, you take them for water, you know which one is sick, which one is pregnant, which bull is responsible, and all that, you know, it got me attached to the animals, and it laid a foundation for me. So, of course, behind that are my parents. Growing up, my parents has been, my father especially has been a teacher for about 45 years. So growing up, he always wanted us to be teachers. And my mom was a farmer. He said, okay, if you are a man, if you don't farm, you die with hunger. So I think I also inherited that name Cletos from my father. So growing up, I didn't know why I got that name. But growing up, at some point, he told me, no, I want you to carry the legacy of teaching and farming. So I hope he's also very happy today. He couldn't be here. He's a farmer. He's busy harvesting now. It's harvesting season in Zimbabwe. Right, so going to primary school, we went to primary school. We used to trek about 5 to 10 kilometers to and from school. So from your school, you come back, go home, you have lunch, you go to herd cattle. So that was the lifestyle. Then for my ordinary level, I was lucky. I went to a school that had agriculture as a subject. So for me, it was obvious choice. I had to choose that as my practical subject. And I remember when we were doing my Form 2, Form 3, which is equivalent to grade 9, grade 11 year, I started doing my first experiment where we have been feeding rabbits. I remember the breed of the rabbits. It was called Chinchilla gigata. That's the large breed of rabbits. We're feeding a commercial diet versus some indigenous legumes. So we used to measure the growth rate and plotting on a graph. There were no computers measuring and plotting on a graph. And then you'd see that there's an increment. So that's where I started my first research, actually. So growing up, I had, during that time, I got some awards as well, Best Agriculture Student twice. Then from there, I went for advanced level where I did biology, chemistry, and geography. Then when it comes to enrolling for at the university, of course, you have to make some choices. My first choice was animal science, then vet science and occupational therapy. So luckily, I then got admitted into BSc Agriculture. Of course, in terms of sponsorship, we used to get government loans, and we were supposed to pay them back, and I still owe it. I have to pay it back. For the MSc, that was a bit difficult for me because I didn't have any support. So from BSc, I proceeded straight away into MSc, so I didn't have any funding. So I remember I had a friend, Prof. Tada, I'm sure he's in the audience. He got a bursary and he paid my fees for the first year. Then later on, I had to to work. I got my first job as a teaching assistant, and then later on as a research officer. Then I had to pay my own fees. So I was working and studying at the same time. So that was very difficult for me, but it taught me lots of lessons as well. So in the picture, that's my BSc class. We call it R99 because that's how it's named, 1999. That's when we started our first year. That's our physiology lecture, Dr. Lambrish. We were dissecting that rat, looking for the endocrine glands in that rat. That's my mom and sister on my BSc graduation. So from there, I was working briefly at a university in Zimbabwe. Then I got an opportunity from my colleagues, I'm sure they're in the audience, Prof. Ngale and Dr. Gwaze. They told me that there's an opportunity at 40A. Prof. Chimonyo is looking for a student. Then that's when I got to 40A. When I got to 40A, that's where I did my PhD. I evaluated cattle production on communal rangelands, and of course looking at the potential of acacia karoo to improve beef production. I'll talk more about that later on. So in my PhD, I managed to produce about 11 peer-reviewed papers, 9 that were in the thesis. Prof. Chimonyo said, no, they are now too much. You can't put all the 11. Let's put them aside. I said, okay, fine. Of course, and 8 conference papers. Of course, that's the supervisory team led by Prof. Chimonyo, Kenneth Zama, and of course, Kenneth Zama is the one who informed me about the job here. That's why I'm here. It's because of Kennedy. And Prof. Stridom. So during that period, I had an opportunity to work briefly at Prof. Stridom's lab. It was very brief, but it had a big impact. I liked the work because that was my actually first time to do meat science. So that's where I got that spark for meat science. So in 2009, I was completing my PhD. I actually completed earlier than normal. I remember we used to submit around September, October, but by June I was done. So I was just waiting to publish papers and put them in the thesis. So during that time, I got an opportunity to attend a conference in Copenhagen, Denmark. So my objective there was to make sure that I get a PhD opportunity. So I said to Prof. Chimonyo, please give me money. I want to go to Copenhagen for 2 weeks. I want to attend the pre-Congress course and then the conference. So when I arrived in Copenhagen, there were people from all over and all over the globe. When we were having lectures, I would make sure that I talked to every lecturer and everyone in the room that I wanted a PhD opportunity. So that was from day 1 up to until day 7. Nobody gave me a positive response. So that afternoon, we had some group discussions. So in that group discussion, there were 5 of us, as you can see in the picture. We introduced ourselves. I introduced myself. So that lady in the picture said, I know you. I know your name from somewhere. They're like, what? You know from somewhere? Okay. Then I asked, where do you know me from? Then she was thinking, okay. She said, no, I actually reviewed your paper on fatty acid. That paper there, she was the reviewer. Then she started talking about some of the weaknesses because it took about 1.5 years to be published because of the methods that we had used. So she started telling me this is the way that you should have done, starting from the extraction, the methylation. You used one method. You're supposed to use double methylation. The kind of gas chromatograph that you used the shorter column. You should have used the longer column. The standards that you used only identified 37 fatty acids. Look, you can actually identify over 40. Hey, by the time she was done, I was already interested in fatty acids. So I think she saw that in me. She said, okay, are you interested in doing fatty acid? I said, yes. She said, okay, I'm now completing my postdoc with Lacombe Research Center. I can link you to the host. I said, okay, it's fine. So the next morning, she sent an email. I got an email from Dr. Dugan saying, okay, I have received your email. Once I get, that was 2009, once I get an opportunity, I'll bring you here. So I waited, I think it was mid-2010. He said, okay, now I have your bursary. It was the scholarship. So by then I was in Rwanda. It took time for me to process the papers. In 2011, I was at Lacombe Research Center in the Alberta province in Canada. So when I arrived there, the good thing that there was no pressure. My host didn't have any high expectations of me. He just wanted to train an African boy. He used to go me, he took me like an African adventure. He just wanted to train someone from Africa. So I remember, so when he was talking to me, you see, when you are talking to someone, you say, you understand? He said, yes. So if you keep on saying yes, 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 someone would think maybe you're not understanding anything. So he gave me that first paper that we are seeing, that influence of alpha-tocopherol supplementation. He gave me the data and all the things that I needed to write. So I wrote a paper, a very good draft. He came to my office, he said to me, are you the one who wrote this paper? I said, yes. He said, okay. He went away. Then again, an opportunity arose. He was invited to an ICOMS 2012, which was held in Montreal. He said, okay, Cletos, can you put down something? I did put down something. So he was actually also impressed by the first draft and said, okay, I'm going to make you the first author. So that paper is very important to me because now most of the reviews that I write on fatty acids actually stem from that experience that I got from that paper. So I understand Mike is in the audience. Thank you very much, Mike, for that. And you can see I was treated well in Canada. Look at the pictures. That first picture is when I arrived in Canada, and the second one when I was leaving. So I had nice time there. Okay, so now my research area, my research focuses on the effect of phytogenic diets on ruminant quality, but I also look at sustainable meat preservation sustainable meat preservation and sensory quality. I also do characterize meat quality in smallholder ruminant systems. I also do adaptive and climate-resistant ruminant production systems. I also look at sustainability assessment frameworks for ruminant meat production systems. So this evening, I want to showcase some of the climatic phytogenic feedstuffs that have potential to enhance ruminant meat quality, of course, with the emphasis on fatty acids. So again, I will share with you a forward-looking research vision on the use of phytogenic feedstuffs to enhance ruminant meat quality. So before I talk about those feedstuffs, I just want to introduce you to why we do this research. So we do research on meat because it's very central to our nutrition and health. Meat is a very good source of protein. About 21% of that is protein. It's also a very good source of minerals. You can see iron, zinc, especially red meat there. It's also a very good source of vitamins, vitamin B12, vitamin A, and also is a very good source of energy. Actually, we evolved to be what we are today as the most intelligent beings because of the energy that we get from meat. But unfortunately, that fat can also have negative effects on our health. Saturated fat acids and cholesterol, right? But those are not the only fat acids that we get in meat. We also get good fat acids, omega-3 fat acids. I'm sure some of you have got omega-3 fat acid supplements. Meat is a good source of omega-3 fat acids. You can actually eat meat. Omega-3 fat acids are good even if they are found in very small amounts. We also have conjugated linoleic acids. They are also good for human health. There are also other bioactive compounds that are also good for human health. So it's not only saturated fat, but there are lots of other nutrients and compounds that are very good for our health. So let's look at the meat production trends. I'll start at global level and maybe come back to Africa and South Africa. So since maybe in the 60s, meat production has been increasing, but you can look at the type of meat. So if you look at the 1960s, you can see that beef was the dominant meat, maybe followed by pig and then poultry at a small section there. But if you look at where we are, poultry is now the number one, number one produced meat, of course followed by pig and then beef, right? I'll talk about why those trends, why is it happening that way. Then if you look at the African continent, there's a little bit difference there, especially when it comes to pigs. Pigs is not very much consumed on the African continent, including South Africa, because of the religious reasons. right? And of course, they are changing consumer preferences. Why consumer preferences are changing, I will tell you in the coming slides. So when it comes to consumption, again, consumption follows the same trend with production, and again influenced by the same factors. So I want to talk more about now the changing consumer preferences. So consumers' meat quality preferences are complex and multidimensional, but they involve a variety of attributes that actually influence purchasing decisions. So these include what we call intrinsic factors and extrinsic factors. Intrinsic factors, these are factors that are inherent to meat, like its physical components and its chemical composition. For example, we can look at the amount of drip, the amount of fat it has, the color of meat, right? Those are intrinsic factors. They are part of meat itself. Then, and when we buy meat, those are the factors that we look at, and we call them search attributes, right? We also have sensory attributes, or we call them experience attributes. So these are the attributes that are very important upon consumption. When we eat meat, we say it's tasting good, it has good flavor, and all that. Those are experience attributes. Then we have what we call credence attributes. These are very important, like the nutrition value and the healthfulness. These are not easily verified by the consumer when we buy. We just based on trust, and we need additional information that can be written on labels for us to maybe trust that there are nutrients in there, or some health, some omega-3 fatty acids in there. We have to rely on the labels. We can't verify it ourselves. So those are the intrinsic attributes, right? Then we can have extrinsic attributes. These are non-meat components, but we use them when we are buying meat. So this can also be divided into two, search attributes and credence attributes. So looking at search attributes, we can have things like the expiry date, the price. When you are buying meat, we look at how much it is, but it's not part of meat. Those are some of the factors. Then we also have some credence attributes, those that are the attributes that we cannot verify, but they are also very important. This is, for example, if you want to know the animal welfare, is it free or for chemical residues, the environmental impact. These days, there's grass-fed beef, organic beef, and all those things, right? Those are part of the extrinsic factors and their credence factors, because we cannot verify them without additional information. So interestingly, these consumer preferences, remember we said they have been changing, right? So if we look at the period around the 1940s and 1960s, consumers put emphasis on nutritional and palatability attributes, and meat actually played a very key role in our diets, and it was actually associated with good health. It was a symbol of affluence and status. So even today, it's still a symbol of affluence. I still remember when we were growing up, if you eat meat with fat, you don't wipe your mouth when you're going to the playground, and you go with a toothpick, so everyone will know that you've had meat. Right, so if you look at the 1970s and 1990s, things changed, right? People were more concerned about health and safety. Meat was associated with chronic diseases. That is maybe attributed to one key research which was done by Ansel Keys around the 70s, which associated saturated fatty acid with coronary heart diseases. Then from there with cancer and diabetes. So meat consumption began to decline. There were also some contamination of prion. Maybe if you still remember mad cow disease caused by that prion is a misfolded protein. Then there was also pathogen contamination. Because of the intensification, pathogen contamination increased. So in trying to get rid of pathogen contamination, there was heavy use of chemicals. Then another problem arises, chemical residues in meat and antibiotic resistance. So those were the problems, right? Coming to where we are now, the emphasis has shifted a little bit. We are still looking at trying to reassess the healthfulness of beef. Remember we said it was because of that study. Actually now people revisiting that study, they saw there were lots of faults in that study. It was not true, right? Anyway, that's a lecture for another day. But now people are also focusing on the healthful fatty acids and trying to enrich meat with those. And of course, when it comes to the environment, everyone talks about animals being responsible for the emission of greenhouse gases, right? And I'm sure for some of you have been reading around, there's been lots of commissions and declarations, just to cite Dublin Declaration and the Eat Lancet Commission. So I think some of these commissions have actually recommended that we should reduce meat, especially in industrialized countries. But in less industrialized countries, they said, okay, you can still maintain, but make sure you include some agroecological principles so that it becomes sustainable. Animal welfare issues, I'm sure some of you have saw in news, I think, lots of issues about animal welfare and, of course, the social justice. So that's where we are now. So, okay. So looking at the consumer preferences and perceptions of ruminant meat, they're actually misaligned, right? So those are like key preferences. We prefer our meat to be nutritious, to be palatable, to be healthful, safe, sustainable, and fresh, right? But our perceptions may actually differ. Yes, our meat is nutritious, and we perceive it to be nutritious. That's why it's positive there. Palatability, the same thing. We perceive it, we want it to be palatable, and it's palatable. But when it comes to healthful, we want healthful meat, but we don't perceive it to be healthful, especially red meat. We think it is not healthful because it has lots of fat, which is not good for our health, especially the saturated fat, right? If we're talking about processed meat, it can actually have lots of salt and synthetic additives that might not be good for our health, right? In terms of safety, the same thing. We want safe meat, but is it safe? It can be contaminated with pathogens, parasite, prions, remember medical disease I mentioned earlier on, chemical residues, contaminants, and physical contaminants. Sustainability, again, we want it to be sustainable, but we are saying it's damaging the environment. It's also becoming expensive, especially red meat, lamb and beef compared to chicken and pork. It's actually expensive, right? Again, the animal welfare issues I've talked about, right? Then in terms of freshness, I have put positive and negative there. So soon after slaughter, when meat is displayed for, let's say, up to 48 days, there's positive perceptions. But after that, the quality starts to deteriorate. So good quality meat actually has, if you are talking about beef, it has a bright cherry red color. But look at it after 3 days, it starts to have a brown color, right? You can start smelling some odors, lots of drip, and that film texture goes away, right? So what can we do to realign consumer preferences with our perceptions? Because once you have negative perceptions about something, you don't buy it. You see, so that's the debate that has been going on. So there are lots of strategies that have actually been used to try and align meat quality preferences and perceptions. But I want to quickly focus on data manipulation because it's cheaper, it's natural, it's faster, and it has a greater impact than most of those strategies that are listed there. So in trying to align our consumer preferences with perceptions, I've established a research program that tends to investigate the potential of climate phytogenic feedstuffs to enhance rumen meat quality, right? So phytogenic feedstuffs, these are feedstuffs that, one, they contain nutrients, but they also contain, we call them phytochemicals, right? These are chemicals that are found in plants that they produce in trying to defend themselves from different stresses. So that includes polyunsaturated fatty acids, polyphenols, saponins, and so forth. So the idea is that when we feed stuffs with these compounds, they get absorbed and get deposited in meat, right? And they have these properties. They have antioxidant properties. They are antimicrobial. They are immunomodulatory. They can also modulate some of the microbes that are found in the rumen, and some of them can also help to control parasites, and some of them can actually help to improve protein. So in terms of animals, once they've eaten those, because of the antimicrobial properties, that can also reduce greenhouse emissions. So it's good for sustainability. It can improve the animal health, which is also good for the animal welfare. But when it comes to meat, it can improve meat yield, it can also improve meat quality, and it can extend shelf life, it can improve the healthfulness of meat. So that is very important because it can help us to ensure that we supply meat that is healthy, safe, sustainable, and fresh. So the approach, we take the holistic approach, but today I'm going to center more on meat quality. So the first thing that we do is to do what we call a needs assessment. What is it that farmers want, retailers and consumers, right? Then, of course, that should be nutrition related. Then from there, we do screening of the feedstuffs. We profile all the feedstuffs that we think could be phytogenic. We look at their chemical composition and their phytochemicals, right? Those that pass that phase, we now move on to testing them in the lab, right? Are they degradable? Can they be digested? Can they reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Can they control parasites? Do they have those properties, antimicrobial and antioxidant properties, right? If they pass that stage, then we move on to formulate balanced diets. So balanced diet, remember, it contains those 5 nutrients: energy, protein, minerals, and yeah. Then, so this feed stuff now we incorporate it as part of the diet to make sure that the diet is balanced. Then we feed it to the animal. We can actually substitute it with, for example, if the feed stuff is an NH feed stuff, we substitute it with an NH feed stuff in the normal diet. Then we evaluate growth performance of animal, health, welfare, and meat quality. So my specialty is on meat quality and fat acids, so I'm going to go through that. So as we work on this, I'm sure you know it needs various expertise. So if we are engaging farmers, we need sociologists. When we are doing the phytochemicals, we need phytochemists, microbiologists, and so forth. And then, of course, animal food and consumer scientists. So I have collaborators who are here and some online that help us to achieve that goal. Right, so the first set of the feedstuffs that I've looked at are tree legume byproducts, right? This is an example of Vaccalia carew, Vaccalia polycantha, Acacia mensa, that's the black wattle. Right, so looking at their chemical attributes, these are drought, heat, and salt tolerant. They fix nitrogen in the soil. They adapt to poor soils. They also help with carbon sequestration, which is also good for the climate. In terms of the nutrition, they have crude protein, which is required by the animal. They are also a good source of fiber and energy. Coming to the phytochemicals, they supply essential fat acids. Essential fat acids, those are the fat acids that cannot be, say, manufactured by an animal's body. So the animal has to get those through the diet. So an example of those is called alpha-linolenic acid and linoleic acid. Then it also has polyphenols, terpenes, and so forth, which are phytochemicals. But anyway, it has to be fed in moderation because if they are in high amounts, it contains those anti-quality factors that might reduce. Some of those can actually be toxic. Some can also reduce intake and animal production. So this study, we conducted it during my PhD. So like I said, we start with the needs assessment. We went to the rural communities in the Eastern Cape. We asked them about their challenges and opportunities in terms of animal production. Then they come up with a whole list of challenges. So amongst their top challenges was feed scarcity, animal diseases, access to markets, and bush encroachment. Right? So we wanted to pursue their first problem, which is feed scarcity. When we pursued that, we saw that it was not only feed availability, but it was also quality. Their pastures, especially during the dry season, it lacked protein. So we determined that by looking at their pastures, we saw that, and then we also drew blood from those animals and looked at the protein content. Then when we were convinced, the next phase was say, okay, how then do we supplement these animals with protein? Remember, we also had that other problem of bush encroachment. Bush encroachment, especially for some of you who have been to Eastern Cape, Beaufort area, Alice area, it's highly infested with Acacia caroom. So I said, okay, let's go for Acacia caroom because it's a good source of protein. It has those phytochemicals that I talked about. So the idea was to supplement the natural pasture with Acacia caroom leaves. So when we were feeding 1.5 kgs per day, and we had to mix that with some hay, because when you feed it on its own, it has that astringent taste, right? So to make it palatable, we had to mix it with hay. So what we found is that it actually increased carcass weight, it increased meat protein content, it improved meat freshness, and it also improved omega-3 fatty acids, which are good for human health. Our next study, we did this study with my first PhD student from Malawi, Dr. Chingala. Again, we went to Malawi, we talked to farmers. This was part of a big climate change project, mitigation project, which was funded by the Norwegian government. So we went there, we talked to farmers, especially when it comes to what they were feeding. They said we had challenges in finding feed during the dry season. So some of them were actually using exotic browse species, right? But they had observed the animals actually browsing the indigenous species that were abundantly available in the areas, including that Vaccalia polycantha and Adonansia digitata, which is the baobab tree, right? And it has those baobab seeds. The animals would eat those. So we said, okay, let's formulate a very simple diet that the farmers can use. So we formulated the diet and fed that to animals. So unfortunately, we did not get very good results. Why? Because the amount of acacia polycantha leaf that we included were too much. So it had detrimental effects on intake and digestibility and meat quality. But when it comes to baobab, it was good because it did not have any detrimental in terms of carcass weight. It also increased intramuscular fat, but it was also not good. So I think we still need to pursue and find actually the optimum amount that we can feed that cannot compromise meat quality. We worked in Matateo. For some of us who are very familiar with Matateo, it's highly infested with black wattle, right? So initially, we were working with farmers. We had to formulate a very simple diet for the farmers. In there, we conducted on-farm trials, and we saw that if we feed this, especially during the dry season, it can actually maintain the weight of sheep. But we said, okay, how about meat quality? Then we came to Stellenbosch and conducted that trial, feeding acacia caroom leaves at different levels. So what we saw that if you feed about 100 grams per kg, this is of the total balanced diet, it can actually increase weight. And we were comparing that when we were actually substituting acacia leaf meal with wheat bran, right? That's a fiber source. Then, of course, there was a slight increase in meat pH, but it reduced fat. It made meat more tender. More excitingly, the fat acid profile was very good. It reduced the bad fat, those saturated fat acids, especially palmitic acid. Then it increased good fat, that's omega-3 fat acids, conjugated linoleic acids, and fascinic acid. It also extended shelf life of meat, including meat brightness and rancidity was reduced. We also conducted another study with herbaceous legumes, that's Cercia lespideza. I think that study was done by our PhD student as well, Dr. Mapiye, I'm sure he's in the room. We fed Cercia lespideza, replacing lucerne. It looks like lucerne. They call it poor man's lucerne. So on feeding it, it actually led to slight decrease in weight, but all the other parameters were as good as lucerne. So again, it's a Climatesmart feed, right? We also worked in Cletos in a project that was funded by ASIA. through ARC. For us who know cactus, it's very efficient in terms of water use. It's very tolerant to heat, but it has high water content and moderate energy. So we harvested those cactus colors, and we can call them leaves, and then we dried them, and we actually substituted lucerne hay, and then we fed at 2 levels, 26%, 13 and 26%. So the 13% was actually as good as the 26%. I mean, as the lucerne. But the 26% tended to have some detrimental effects. It compromised the proximate composition, but it also improved the shelf life and the sensory quality. Again, one of our projects, we looked at sorghum grain. Sorghum grain is not commonly used as a feed source. So we had to evaluate it because of its climate-smart attributes. So in terms of its nutritional composition, it's equivalent to maize. Maize and soybean are the main ingredients that are actually used as animal feeds. So we had to replace maize on one-to-one basis with sorghum grain. And then again, we saw that there was a slight reduction in carcass weight. But excitingly, there was also an improvement in terms of shelf life parameters like color and lipid stability. So another project that we did, we evaluated fruit products. So these were some of the projects that I did when I arrived in Stellenbosch, feeding grape pomace and citrus pomace because of their secular bioeconomy advantages. So in terms of key phytochemicals, you can see that it contains that essential fatty acids, and but it can also have issues in terms of perishability. So we had to sun dry it. Right. So one of our PhD students had to incorporate that into the commercial diet, and the diet was actually pelleted. So upon feeding that, and we are actually replacing oat and wheat bran with that grape pomace. So we saw that it increased weight and it did not affect shelf life, among other parameters. But excitingly, it improved shelf life parameters. It reduced microbial content on meat, for example. The shelf life in terms of protein stability was also improved. So on this one, maybe just to mention, we only saw positive effects in terms of growth when we included it up to 100 grams per kg, right? But beyond that, weight started to decrease. Then at 200 grams, that's when, 200 grams per kg, that's when we saw those effects on, positive effects on shelf life. So following on that project, that's when we looked at feeding it to keto now. But now we had an idea of which one could be the optimum inclusion level. So we fed it at 15%, right? And then, of course, grape pomace compared to citrus pulp, it increased carcass weight. Both byproducts, they made the meat brighter compared to meat bran. And then they made also the meat less tender. But comparing wheat bran and citrus pulp, both were actually outperformed by grape pomace pulp. Then again, in terms of shelf life, right, grape pomace and citrus pulp, both were actually good because they reduced microbial loads. Right, when it came to fatty acids, both grape pomace and citrus pomace yielded the microbial, good fats. And of course, comparing both grape pomace and citrus, grape pomace had good results. Right, we also fed oils because of their Climatesmart and those key phytochemicals. So the first one, we did this when we were in Lacombe. So usually when we want to improve fat acid profile, one, you have to have that good source of fat acids. And secondly, you have to create conditions that are conducive for bypass or at least partial biohydrogenation of those fat acids. So when we fed a flaxseed in a red clover silage diet, we saw that there was no change because we actually were comparing to barley grain. Barley grain is actually like the conventional sort of feed that was used in Canada. So we saw that it actually reduced the bed fat and increased omega-3 and conjugated linoleic acids, which are also good. But it also increased other fat acids whose health effects are not known, and we call those conjugated linolenic acids and non-conjugated linoleic acids. Right, in a follow-up study, because flaxseed is a very good source of omega-3 fat acids, sunflower seed is a good source of omega-6 fat acids, which is linoleic acid. So we wanted to compare those two and see which one is better. In the previous study, there was a comparison of grass hay versus barley silage, and the grass hay was also found to be good. So now, having looked from the previous one, having seen that red clover silage can perform better, so we wanted also to compare red clover silage versus grass hay. So we had 4 treatments. So when we fed, we saw that sunflower was actually doing better in terms of improving carcass attributes and sensory quality and vasenic acids, which are good fat, compared to flaxseed. But flaxseed had sort of bad effects. It made the meat darker and redder, which is not good. Remember, we said when we are buying, we look at the color of meat, right? But it also increased the content of those fat acids whose effects are not known. Grass hay versus red clover silage, we saw that grass hay was actually doing better in terms of carcass attributes, sensory attributes. Then a combination of red clover silage and flaxseed actually was the best in terms of omega-3 fat acids, right? And overall, comparing oil seed effects versus forage effects, we found that oil seed effects is actually were higher in terms of improving fat acid profiles compared to forages. Then also we have the PhD student who looked at yam seed cake. Yam seed cake has lots of phytochemicals, right? Linoleic acid, alpha-linoleic acid, those are omega-3 and omega-6 fat acids. It also has vitamin E, which is a very good antioxidant. It also contains some cannabinoids, which are also very good sources of, which has antioxidant effects. So in terms of growth, carcass traits, we saw that it had no effect, but it was good in the sense that it increased the compounds that improve flavor, right? And it also increased fat content, meat brightness, and antioxidant activity. It improved the meat fat acid profile. I think this was my first study that actually increased fat acid content to the level where you can actually claim it as a source high in omega-3 fat acids. So in South Africa, you can actually claim or label your meat as a source of fat acids if it contains about 75 milligrams of omega-3 fat acids. We say it's a good source. Then when it contains about 175, we say it's high in. When it contains 300 and above, it's an excellent source. So this was actually my first time to produce something that was claimable. Then in terms of shelf life, because of lots of the oils, I think it improved, increased the rancidity. So we didn't put an extra antioxidant because we thought it had lots of those antioxidants like I mentioned earlier. Right, this one, so following up on that one, having seen that the seed cake can actually improve omega-3 fat acids to a claimable level, we said, okay, let's now use the oil. So when we used the oil, we did not find any differences in carcass attributes, So we had 2 levels, 25 grams and 50 grams, right? The 50 gram one was actually detrimental because it made meat brownish, right? But excitingly, again, in terms of omega-3 fatty acids, we managed to get to a level that is claimable. That's 328. So the claimable excellent source is 300. So that was slightly above. So again, there was an issue with the lipid oxidation. So I think in our future studies, we want to look for a source that we can actually use to try and minimize that lipid oxidation. Right, so I think that was my last slide. Then what are the key home messages? Right, so you see that of the 15 feedstuffs that I talked about, majority of them either had no effect on carcass weight or they increased carcass weight, right? Which is good because when the farmers are produced, what they are actually paid for is kg. They are paid in per kg basis. So in terms of physicochemical quality, it either maintained or improved physicochemical quality. But for sure, in terms of meat shelf life, it improved. Most of those actually improved meat shelf life. Right? In terms of health fat acids, again, there was a good improvement in fat acids. So this is not easy. So there are some factors that one has to consider to get things right. One of those things is you want to make sure that you use the right inclusion level. The amount that you actually feed is important, right? The source of those phytochemicals and the source of your polyunsaturated fatty acid is also very important, and the feeding duration. So going forward, I envision to establish a consumer-centered climate-smart meat hub. So the purpose here is to make it a platform in trying to reposition ruminant meat as a future feed food. How do I envision to do that? I envision to use to integrate indigenous knowledge with modern science to co-create phytogenic diets that can actually enhance meat quality, thereby enhancing food and nutrition security. So as we do that, I also make sure that I use agricultural byproducts, which is also very important for our circular economy. So in doing that, it's also very important to align consumer preferences with industry priorities and sustainability imperatives. So it's very important that we produce high quality meat efficiently using those local circular resources while reducing greenhouse emissions. That's the target. So in doing that, obviously, we need strategic partners and also need to be very inclusive to make sure that we share the resources and we don't duplicate efforts. So one of the issues I remember, the Tyson Foods in the States, they tried to produce what they called Climatesmart feeds, but it was shut down because I think it lacked traceability and credibility. So in this hub, we will try and make sure that we establish some very robust digital traceability systems, right? And it's also very important to make sure that when we claim, these claims are substantiated with evidence. We can have sustainability claims. I've just talked about health claims. We want to make sure that these are backed with evidence. So as we do that, we want to work with communities. We want to empower them through skills. We want to improve their market access. And as well, we want to make sure that we rebuild trust. We can do that by consistently do or engage with consumers to know their preferences. We also make sure that we look at the policy, the changes in policies and the different trends and make sure that they are aligned. So by so doing, what we are aiming for is for a healthier, more just and resilient food system. On that note, thank you so much for listening to me. This would not have been possible without the assistance of my students, the academic staff in the Department of Animal Sciences, our support staff, thank you so much. And of course, the family, thank you so much. That's my family, my siblings. Thank you so much. And all the glory be to God. Thank you.
Cletos, thank you for that inspiring talk. It was really good. It was not good, it was brilliant. I actually don't have words because sometimes you sit here, you don't know the real story behind the person that's doing the lecture. And that was really for me such an inspiring thing for everyone that was basically there. So we're now going to have academic response by Professor Michael Chimonyo. So over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about Cletos. I think it was in 2009 when I told Cletos that I want you to be better than me. So I'm not too sure whether it's getting there. Some of you may not know me. My name is Mike Chimonyo. I come from the University of Venda, and I think most of you don't know where it is. But what we are doing there resonates well with what Cletos was talking about, which is about how do we ensure that the science that we do benefit people, benefit humanity. He talked here about beef, which should be improved in terms of its quality, but this beef is consumed by people. So the next step in the hub, where I was speaking to him in the morning, is to say, let's involve the people in the studies that we are doing, so that we don't just talk about dark-colored meat. Let's talk about I want you to eat this meat and see how they will respond, so that will enrich the findings that we are going to be reporting. In other words, as a University of Venda, we pride so much in what we call impactful research. So I am challenging Cletos now that let's move now to the next level of saying the people out there, they are the ones who slaughter their animals for meat consumption. Let's work with them and see how they can enrich our publications and enrich the findings that we are going to produce and put out there for the benefit of society. One of the things that Cletos talked about, which I want to reiterate, is the issue of interdisciplinarity, the issue of multidisciplinarity, the issue of transdisciplinarity. How can we work together as animal scientists with people in sociology, knowing how difficult they are to work with, but they are important in what we do? How can we work with the veterinarians, knowing how proud they are about their profession? But we need them in whatever we are doing, because it makes what we are trying to achieve even better and more impactful and more meaningful to society. So to Cletos, I want to say congratulations for having gone thus far, and you need to appreciate that it is only the beginning, because there are still more things that we need to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you for that kind words. On the program, it now states that Cletos is going to answer some questions, but it also states that you only have 5 minutes. Because I can see the food is already there. As a food scientist, I always keep my eyes on the food that's there. But Cletos, please, are there any questions that you want to ask him? Oh, there's one question. Yes, please go ahead. There's a microphone that you can just, thank you.
Prof. Mapiye, so you mentioned good things happening, and the question is policy note. I want to ask you, what do you think needs to happen, or from a policy intervention note, that will really help our small farmers and our farmers to implement and adopt these innovations that you've discussed to really impact the perceptions that us, the client, the user, have around meat?
Okay, okay, sure. So your question, if I get it right, what are the policy interventions that we can make to try and take this to farmers? Okay, thank you for the question. So I think from where I'm standing, the policies alone might not maybe get us there. So I think it starts with us as investors. What are we doing? Because now I can give you an example. I'm rewarded for publishing and training students. I'm not getting a reward of taking my research to the farmers. So if you look at all the accolades that we're talking, he read my CV, he talked about publications, he talked about students, but nothing about farmers. So I think it should start with us as investors to have metrics that favors us so that we can go in there motivated, knowing that at least it's going to my salary. Then that's true. And then in terms of policy, obviously, if we can't take it, the government has to maybe design some policies again through extension that can help us to take this message to the farmers. That's how I see it.
Yeah, thank you, Prof, for the good presentation. And my question is on the issue of, from the consumer point of view, yeah. On the issue of, you mentioned important aspect that we are looking at in terms of quality. But as a consumer, I also want to hear about the taste.
The taste. The
taste, yes. Yeah. So we believe as consumers that if animals use their own natural, they call it natural selection in terms of feed, they tend to give a better taste than scientific methods that apply. So have you tried and taste the meat after we have done your research, whether it tastes, at least it gives taste for consumers to buy it? Because really we look at that thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So maybe I was rushing, I didn't explain it clearly, but I think I also have a collaborator, Dr. Maras. She's going to say something about it. Because she's the expert, right? So we do test. So firstly, we have a trained panel. After doing our studies, we have a trained panel that tests. So when I was talking about sensory quality being improved or decreased, that's what I was talking about. So we do test. So we also do what we call consumer panels as well. So we can also take our meat to the consumers, and they can also test it and give us feedbacks. But anyway, what I wanted to say about taste is very variable. What tastes good to you is different to what, so it can be very variable. But I understand. So what tastes good to you is something that you are accustomed to, something that you are used to. So I think most of us who grew up eating meat from the field, when we eat it, it tastes good. This grass fed doesn't taste good, so it's the other way around, right? Even when it comes to tenderness, I remember at some point there was also a debate, because you see what people call tender to some people is too soft, right? So yeah, maybe I want to end there. If Janine has something to add on, she can. Okay. Can I just keep? Sure. Sorry, Prof.
Okay, I'm going to allow one question. Can we maybe get a question from the online audience, if that is possible or not? No, it seems like it's not possible at this point. Any other questions? Because I know you're going to ask him questions, but please give him time to eat. I think he's hungry at this moment. They usually say the proof is in the pudding, but yes, the proof is in the meat. So that is fine. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And we're now going to listen to Professor Moyo. She's going to give us some response from the Rectorate. Thank you.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. I know I'm sitting between you and the food, but because the lecture was about another type of food, so maybe we can take a few minutes. So just to say, I'll stand on the protocols already observed, and then say thank you to everyone that spoke and all the dignitaries and the procession that are here. And to Professor Mapiye in particular, and our distinguished guests who are here, your family as well. I know that, the kids were happy to see this last slide, I think. There was more happiness. So thank you for an inspiring lecture. As a university, we see these lectures as a platform for engagement where we are able to showcase, it's part of showcasing, but also giving an opportunity to our professors to share what they do with the public and with the university. And the biggest test is around whether you all understand what was said. I know everybody knows what the cow looks like, what the meat looks like. Sorry to the vegetarians in the group. But I think he also spoke about sustainability, so you can be happy about that. So I think that, of course, it's a privilege that the university has such talent, and we are really privileged that you were able to share the knowledge around some of the work that you're doing, understanding the impact on food security, on health, and then also possible innovations that can help us to improve livelihoods. As a university, as you know, we have a strategy, Vision 2040, and as part of that strategy, we want to be to have impact on society, and this lecture shows that impact on people, on health, and also having sustainable practices which can help us in terms of how we progress as a human race responsibly, and ensuring that there's a less a negative footprint on our climate as well. So what I took from this lecture, without having to go into details, because I think, Prof, you gave a very good response from University of Venda. It was very modest, but my take was that we are what we eat, as a summary. That's the first part. But the other part, I think, on a more serious note, is really, your interest in having a bigger initiative that can have impact. And I was glad to see that we have a colleague from Innovus. Are you still here? Yeah? Innovus is our tech transfer. And I see a lot of potential, from where you start from. If you look at, I think, the parents and the siblings there, in terms of where you start from, the value of our indigenous knowledge systems, and the impact that has in terms of the practices which we already know, but how do we translate that also from our African experiences and African knowledge into products that can be used, and good practices that can be used in terms of how we go forward. So of course, I was also happy to see hemp seed byproducts. I didn't know that hemp seed, well, I knew something, but I think today I learned much more around the byproducts that you listed. So where we can find, so we know most of us rely on, omega-3 tablets. We are pushing a lot of that, but it's good to see that there are other alternatives as well that can be used. And then I think the other thing that I just wanted to mention was that for us, this research really contributes to our national, international visibility, and in terms of informing practices and also policies, especially around agriculture and also animal science. It's sad that Professor Zama is not here, but it would have been good to also see him and to be part of this, but we do understand that he might have other engagements today as well. But we do thank the Dean representative, yeah? I understand he was not available as well. So your work exemplifies the core principles of research, innovation, internationalization, and also collaboration, and your focus on promoting postgraduate students, emerging researchers for us is also important. it is, of course, locally grounded, but globally visible. And it was interesting to see you survive in Canada. You didn't mention the cold, but I suppose the cold has no effect on the animals, right? They can survive, they can adapt. So yeah, so in short, we really want to thank you again for the lecture. And as part of that, I know as a university, this is one of the milestones. We used to officially call you the professor here at the university. But I will then use this opportunity to hand over the certificate, but again, to thank you for your work and to wish you well in the future. And we look forward to greater impact, more funding, of course, opportunities, which is everyone's KPA. But we believe that excellent research always attracts additional funding, so we want to acknowledge that. And as I give you the certificate, before I do that, I know my team might complain later on, but I must acknowledge also the team that has helped us to make this lecture possible today in advance. I know they will be thanked later on, our communications and marketing team, and I think the team from the Registrar's Office. So with that, I have to present you this certificate on behalf of the Rectorate and on behalf of our Dean of Students and myself who are representing the Rectorate today. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you, Professor Moyo. And now, Dr. Hilette Lambrecht is going to have a word of thanks.
Okay, hi everyone. I've been given the brief to be short and quick, so let me try and stick to that. So, everyone present in the room and our online audience, distinguished guests and friends. I think this evening is quite a special occasion with Prof. Cletos Mapiye with his inaugural lecture sensitizing us to maybe that it is crucial to sometimes go back to what Mother Nature has provided us with. Now, what I mean by that is, in the Department of Animal Sciences, one of our key jobs are to train students that can go into industry and to make sure that we've got a nice juicy steak to eat or to put on the braai over the weekend. However, part of our job also is to make sure that our training of our students are relevant and current, and one of our key mandates is to ensure food security, but also the production of safe food. And if we compare South Africa and bigger Africa to the rest of the world, we have a variety of production conditions, variety of production species. And in South Africa itself, we deal with subsistence farmers all the way to mega farmers. And because we tend to try and optimize processes, we tend to lose touch with what Mother Nature provided us with. Animals that have the capacity to utilize the natural resources in their environment. They are perfectly equipped to digest the feed items and turn it into either milk or meat or fiber. So at the end of the day, I would like to thank Prof. Mapiye for reintroducing us to this particular valuable natural resource. And I know that when he started with his research in the department, we thought, oh, these unconventional resources, is it really going to work? But look at what he produced in the time since he started with the department. And again, thank you for just sensitizing us that there are so many other alternatives outside that our animals can actually utilize, and quite well at that as well, without having any concerns about the meat that eventually is the end product, that it will affect consumer preference. I think in the department, you're the quiet one. So we know you for your reserved nature, but part of that reserved nature also is linked to the strength, the quiet strength that Prof. Stradam also referred to, that shaped your journey in our department and at the university. But we know that it is grounded in thoughtfulness, consistency, and resolve, because the non-conventional phyto botanicals that you work on sometimes need some perseverance in really tapping into their potential. So as a department, we truly recognize your contribution to us as a team, and the mentorship and the value that you add to keeping our department relevant and at the forefront of really doing research that make a huge difference in the community. So, as Prof. Moyo also elucidated, we would like to thank all the academic and support staff or professional administrative staff that made tonight possible. It would not have been possible with everyone chipping in, doing their little bit, making sure everyone is here, for example, on time, for photos to be taken. And then more particularly to Prof. Mapiye's family, being here tonight, all his family online, his collaborators, his friends and mentors. We are sure that all of you played an exceptional role in his life to make him the person he is. And I think little did Prof. Mapiye know when he became his father's namesake that he would follow in his footsteps to be a teacher of students and a teacher of communities about the value that Mother Nature's resources hold for food security and going forward. So without further ado, I would like to call the session closed and invite you to join us outside to celebrate the evening with Prof. Mapiye and mingle. I'm not going to say network because it's at the beginning of a long weekend and that's not going to work. So just enjoy it and let's celebrate this very special occasion with him tonight.
Thank you, everyone. You can go now. Okay, wait, sorry. Okay, sorry, people. The Deputy Vice Chancellor asked you to sit down, so
Apologies for doing the protocol. Thank you so much. Can I ask you to stand as we say goodbye to the procession and the procession leaves the room? Enjoy the refreshments.